Hey, everybody. I'm Gary McLean, and you are watching Talent Talk. Just a reminder that if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the Talent Talk YouTube channel. And another reminder that this is a live and interactive show. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them into the comment section, and we'll make every effort to try and say hi or address the questions. Now, today's guest, he is a theater actor turned film and television actor out of New York. Although he hasn't been on the film side for long, he has racked up a number of credits already, including a role on the HBO miniseries I Know This Much Is True with Mark Ruffalo, and the starring role on the newly released noir thriller Women. So please join me in welcoming Michael Simon Hall. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Gary.
How's it
Hey,
going?
man. How's it going?
It's all right.
Good.
I can't complain. It's kind of a heat wave here in Calgary right now, so
Oh, is
wishing
it?
I had.
Really?
It is, yeah. It's about,
Well, we
I
had the
guess
opposite.
so.
We had Memorial Day weekend. It was very chilly. It got pretty chilly here, but it was still lovely. But it was not what we usually expect for, Memorial Day. Usually you want to go to the beach or you want to be in a pool or at a barbecue. And it was a little overcast. It was, well, I guess for barbecue it might be okay, but it was chilly. It was around 60 degrees or so. Yeah.
Okay, and I think we're probably in the mid 80s right now. I think for us, so which is warm this time of year.
Wow.
Mid 80s, maybe high 80s in there. I'm still trying to figure out my conversions a little bit.
Yeah. Right, right.
So if you don't mind, maybe you can give yourself a bit of an intro of where you're from, when you got started. Just quick brief summary of who you are.
Oh, gee. Well, I like to call myself a storyteller, Gary, and I guess it started when I was um, my first love was music. I and grew up in Connecticut, a few hours outside of New York City, and um, I started doing music at a young age, and then singing in church choirs and stuff like that. And then started doing a um, community theater when I was in middle school, and then I was kind of hooked. I kind of got the bug. And then that continued, and by the time I was in high school, I was working professionally doing theater, and I did a lot of musical theater when I started out, and then eventually started a theater company here in the city, and started to be more interested in what we call straight plays and drama, and then also started writing plays and kind of explored a lot of different things, and that's why I call myself a storyteller, because I like to work in different forms, and I like to. I mean, lately I've been focusing on TV and film, and it's been going really well for me. But it's kind of like a culmination of many things I've been doing for a long time.
Right, and so with the acting side in the film side of things, have you strictly just focused on the acting side, or is writing something you kind of maybe want to get into as well for film?
Sure. Well, at one point I was very focused on playwriting, and I had three plays produced in the city here, um, and it's something that's always in my on my mind, and I'm developing some scripts right now, and um, for screen, and but it's right now I miss the visceral experience of being in either in front of an audience, or just that visceral experience you have when you're really in that when you're in the moment, when you're acting, that nothing else can really replace that. And even if you're on set, it's not quite as it's different than, of course, being in front of a live audience, but there's that kind of adrenaline rush and that excitement, and that you got to go for it, and you got to act, meaning acting meaning take action in the moment and do something, and it's alive, you know and because playwriting is cerebral, it's thoughtful, it's contemplative, and it's removed from life, and that's
Right,
the philosophical aspect of the of myself, maybe more, is the playwright side or the director side. um, but the actor can't be thinking. I mean, you do your thinking and then you leave it all behind before you actually think. I mean, in your preparation. So it's like, in a way, they're the uh, antithesis of each other. Um, there's no room for thinking when you act, and
Right.
that's great. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on the differences between the actual theater acting versus the film acting. Like obviously there's the audience difference, but in terms of the actual acting, maybe you can maybe describe a little bit of what you find different.
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of. I mean, it's. I think the vast majority of it is the same. It's the same kind of craft. I think one way to explain it, express it, is generally speaking, when you're on stage, you're communicating in a larger space, and that means literally, not just figuratively, but physically. And you're in a larger space, but you're kind of in communication with a larger space. All your perceptions are activated in a way that ideally where you are and you kind of have ways to embrace that whole physical space, even if it's a smaller, more intimate theater, which is different from film, where you could say you're communicating in a smaller space. I mean, and I mean that not just physically but mentally, and your attention is kind of in a smaller space. But that's a generality. It's not always the case, you know. But I mean, that's one thing that I think of. And I mean, you could ask a million. Every actor will give you a different opinion about that.
For sure. Like one of
Yeah,
the things I definitely think about
yeah.
is the fact that film is very in your face. You're much more subtle on the film side, because the camera picks up all the nuances. Whereas in theater, you have to be a bit more expressive about that, so that, like you said, the audience in the back of the theater can actually see and hear what you're
In,
doing.
in some ways, yeah. That's one thing every people tend to say, and I think there's some truth in it, but you can't let. I mean, yes and no. I mean, you'll see wonderful. Our greatest stage actors know how to be subtle on stage too. They do. And it's, of course, you got to have good lighting so that they can see you, and and good staging. But I like to think that, the storytellers we really admire, the actors we really admire, can be just as subtle on stage as they can be on camera, I think. And there is a factor of voice, and articulation on stage. That is expected, like you said, to be able to reach the back row. And it depends on the style of theater you're doing too. And, yeah, you got to do something, so to speak, to be able to reach that back row, maybe with your body too. And also with the staging that would be more active maybe than it would be on a film set, you know. So there's definitely some truth to that. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And when you were doing, actually, I guess I should ask the question. You're actually still doing musical theater, or will be again once COVID kind of goes away here. I believe, right? You're still
Yeah,
into the whole
I've
theater
been,
side.
yeah, I've been very fortunate to be. I mean, well, I don't say musical theater, I just say theater. I do theater. Some of it's musical, some of it's not. Yeah, I've been doing a musical called Henry Box Brown, and I was very fortunate that we were able to go into a workshop setting about a month ago. I mean, we ended about a month ago, and still, while the pandemic was, even though it was receding during this COVID time, or the pause, we were under quarantine in a bubble together, a whole ensemble of us, and at a remote location, working on continuing to develop this story of Henry Box Brown that I've been a part of for about 3 years. And that was a real honor and a privilege, and just a gift to be able to be working with fellow artists in quote unquote normal setting. I mean, we're all physically in the same environment, in the same rehearsal studio, singing together, dancing together, rehearsing, doing our scene work together, and performing together, while developing, kind of delving into a new a script that's going, where it takes a lot of time to develop a musical, especially. It's highly collaborative, and you go through many iterations, many drafts, and we're in that process. Even though we've had great success already at the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland, and we had great audience feedback, and it's very promising. It's a transcendent show about overcoming, really about overcoming suppression. Oh yeah, there's a picture right there. I play the Reverend James Smith, who was an actual character. This is all based on the true narrative written by Henry Box Brown, who escaped from slavery in 1849 by shipping himself through the mail in a box from Virginia up to Philadelphia. And I'm one of a handful of people who helped him to escape through what became known as the Underground Railroad. And like I said, it's really about overcoming, the transcending oppression. Of course, we're talking about, and of course, it happens to be very timely now because of what's going on in our society right now, and politically here in the United States and whatnot. Revealing the true story of what slavery was like, and then and honoring this man's story, um, and in terms of being able to, really, he there's a few things that he says in the story. He says, "Free is how I'm always going to be," meaning that even though his body has been in chains. I mean, even though his spirit is not in chains, his body is in chains, but he finally he finally is able to escape, and it's um, it's been quite a growth, for me as an actor, and this is one of the reasons why I like to do things like this. It's very meaningful for me to participate in this and to learn more about what occurred at that time period and how that reflects on the current challenges we have right now. And um, in our world, and it's been a privilege to be a part of it. It's written by Mayor Mansouri, and she's a gifted storyteller, for sure. Yeah, so we're going back on tour again in July. I mean, I'm sorry, not July, August. Or we're going to be doing a performance at least down in, I believe, down in Tennessee to start, and we'll see what happens after that. Yeah.
Right, and I think July is when you're starting rehearsals. I think that's what's happening in July, or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We go into rehearsals in July. Yeah,
okay. And
yeah,
is there plans to go beyond Tennessee? Do you think, or um,
yeah.
other
Well,
locations?
there's definitely a lot of interest in the further development of the show, and there's a lot of people, waiting in the wings. And like I said, it takes time. I don't want to say anything prematurely, but it's very promising. There's a lot of interest, and one thing I didn't mention about the show is one of the beautiful things about it is that the story is told largely through Negro spirituals, traditional, what we call traditional Negro spirituals, which was the music of the that helped the slaves to maintain a sense of hope, and it gave them strength to carry on. And this is woven in throughout. You know, it's integrated with a lot of new original music in the show, and I love that music. And like I said, your music is so important to me, and his music is transcendent, and it really does heal. And these Negro spirituals, I mean, there's nothing that really can compare to those. And they're sung a cappella in the show for the most part, and so you get that beautiful experience while we're telling the story of Henry Box Brown, of his life.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
so and so there is an interest in taking the show further, and you got to take one step at a time. So we'll see.
for
I wish
sure.
I could tell you more.
No,
Maybe,
fair enough.
hopefully I can come back and tell you, have good news for you, and maybe sometime this fall, or next year. We'll see what happens.
Right? Absolutely. Agreed. Keep my fingers crossed for that one. Um, when it comes to your musical side, like I'm assuming you play a number of instruments, or um, maybe
Oh,
not,
well,
or
I play the piano. I dabble in the piano. I used to, when I was young, that was my passion. Was I started playing piano when I was about 9 years old, and I was obsessed with that for a while. But then, as I realized as I became a teenager, I couldn't get myself to sit down for long enough to really to practice for more than maybe 45 minutes at a time. And I was too wired up and too rambunctious, and so I didn't realize that till later, but that was an issue. And so I kind of I but that was my entry into music, and studying the piano gives you a good foundation for understanding music theory, and if you want to be a singer, especially if you want to do musical theater. So, but I still do play a little bit, and you get to see me play in this movie I did, Women, that I guess we're going to talk about, that just came out last week. Um and I play a professor who is an aesthete. He loves music and literature, art, and I get to play a little bit. I'm really not. I mean, I can't really tout my piano playing in the story. It was really quite quite mediocre, but it was something. It was something. When you're doing these show, when we shot on a tight schedule, and I really didn't have much time to warm up and practice. It's like, okay, we're going to shoot your piano scene. Okay, go. And I was like, wait, I need to warm up here a little bit, and sometimes I really didn't get the opportunity to do that, and we just had to go. You know,
fair enough.
so yeah.
And that, to me, that was a great segue to start discussing women. So
Yeah,
thanks
yeah,
for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But before we get there, I do just want to remind the folks that are watching that if you do have any questions or comments that you'd like to share, just throw them into the comment section, and we'll have a look. Now, when it comes to women, like you said, this was just released on the 28th of May, so very recently, like you said, last week.
Yeah.
And whereabouts can people kind of check this out at this point in time?
Well, right now it's on demand. The whole COVID thing has thrown everything up in the air, and there's a lot of last minute decision making, and there's a lot of people. I mean, studios and whatnot trying to get stuff back in theaters, and it's honestly very competitive right now for those slots. And we're hopefully going to be in a limited release in some theaters over the summertime. Um, but you can definitely get it on demand. You can get it on Amazon Prime and Apple Plus and some other platforms like that. And yeah, and it's a thriller by Icelandic filmmaker Anton Sigurdsson. And it was really an honor to work with him. And it's like, I guess you could call it a psychological thriller. Anton likes to call it a crime noir. It's really kind of a slow burn, and it's I play a professor on an outwardly seemingly benign, kind of charming sociology professor who has a hidden dark side, and um, he's doing things with his students he shouldn't be doing, and he's been doing it for a long time and getting away with it. And I'm being cryptic on purpose. You have to see it. And and so it's about women. He's got this. It's interesting. Well, he had some formative experiences as a young man that you hear about that deeply impacted him and his relationship with his own mother, and some things that happened to him that he never quite got over, and now he's kind of he's been kind of reliving some of these things with some of his students over time, and so it puts you on the edge of your seat. It's a little bit. I have people that I know have seen it, and it's not the kind of a part that you would think I would normally play, to play the bad guy, but that's what makes it interesting, and I think that's why Anton. I don't know. He never told me, but exactly why he cast me in this part. But it's been an interesting challenge. Yeah.
And I definitely do want to chat on that. But before we get there, we'll
Yeah.
share the trailer with folks, and so they can get a little hint of your
Oh yeah.
character.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
The assignment is, how has society evolved in terms of beauty standards? I didn't know you worked here.
Yes.
I could give you a ride. Well, I better get going.
Yes?
So you're telling me we got nothing?
The victim was an adult female. There is evidence of both vaginal and anal intercourse.
I'm bringing in a new girl.
Even after what happened last time? What do you think?
It's not for you.
Then for who?
You know who.
I can't stay here. He's watching us.
Remove your pants.
I gotta get out of here. Don't even think about escaping. What? No, 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 no.
It's probably the third time I've actually watched that trailer, and I love it every time. It's definitely gets my interest, that's for sure. So yeah, let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about your
Yeah.
character. Um, I find that I've always found it interesting, especially when people play those kind of characters and how they actually get into that mindset. So I'd be kind of curious to see what you did to get there.
Gary, I'm sorry. We're cutting out a little bit. I missed your question there.
Oh, no worries. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. No, all I was saying is that I'm always intrigued by actors who have those kind of roles to play and how they actually get to that zone for that character. And I was kind of curious as to how you got there.
Um. Well, I just take it from the script. This is what I usually say to people is I just really believe in honoring the script, and you kind of let the script wash over you, or kind of like you kind of surrender to the script. You take a lot of quiet time with the script, and you read it, and there's a certain amount of analysis that you do, but then you kind of let it just seep into you, and it's some of it is happening on kind of an organic or like an unconscious level. You can do certain amounts of research, and I've always been fascinated with the human condition. Of course, that's one of the reasons why I'm an actor, and I've studied in the past. I've studied what does make people what you call psychotic or sociopathic, right? Somebody and so there's that kind of thing about understanding what's actually what's going on maybe mentally with that person that makes him that way. Um, but then there's the point of just seeing him as a human being, and you just honor what's on the page, and you make it.
Sorry, folks. I think we've lost our guest. Um, since we're kind of on a little hiatus here, Chingaze, I see you had a question there. We have not. Oh, there he is. We lost you there for a second. I don't know if you were
Hey,
still able
yeah,
to hear
sorry.
us or.
Yeah, we're going in and out a little bit here.
Yeah, we seem to be losing a bit of a connection
So
there.
yeah. So fingers crossed. So what were you saying? I mean, I don't know where did I get cut off? I'm saying about I guess you got to take, it's a human being. It's a human being, right? And with no judgment. And you just got to try to honor that human being, and you honor it by honoring what's on the page, you know. And almost everything you need to know is on that page. It's not just the dialogue, but it's all the stage directions. It's the concept of the director, and then it's also, really having a meaningful conversations with the director and trying to understand where he's coming from and how this came to him, this whole idea, and what his vision is for it. And you kind of assimilate all these things, Um, and it's a challenge to play someone like this that's kind of messed up, and that, I mean, well, to put it lightly, it's like he's one of the things that the phenomena that happened to me was that I started to, you see, sometimes you start to assimilate things about the character that you don't consciously realize it's happening, but you start to take on some of the qualities of the character. And I don't mean that I was doing the crazy things that he does, but mentally, some of the feelings or the emotions or the way of being, it starts to come out in you. And one of the things is that he's highly compartmentalized. Okay, at the very least, if not actually schizophrenic, meaning two split, almost like having a split personality. This guy, because he's this professor that's very popular in his community. He's even quote unquote a pillar of the community. That's in the script. Okay, that's one of this detective says, well, we can't go after him. He's a pillar of the community. He's not the one we're looking for, is he? You know. So you have that aspect of him, and that he's extremely intelligent and clever, and been able to play this lie along for decades. And the thing is, we know in society this actually does happen, and that's partly where the idea came for Anton, that there's these people that are among us in society that are doing these terrible things right under our nose, and we can't believe that it's happening. And so this is one of these instances. And so, but the point is that he's constantly has this duality going on, and he has his public persona and he has his private persona, and he's able to keep them separated and to be able to function in some way. And I started to have this cognitive dissonance myself, and I found myself feeling disconnected. And I realized that was kind of what I was experiencing, was probably what the character is experiencing, or what this kind of person experiences, feeling disconnected from real actual reality, like pretending that you're in connection or that you're in communication with people when you're really not in communication, because you're living this constant lie, so. And that did have an effect on me, and I realized that was probably that was part of the experience of living this character out. And so I just had to be able to sit in that, or be in that space, and hopefully it contributed to what actually ends up on, what you actually see in the story. What, hopefully it was effective, yeah. So,
Yeah, no, that all
that's
makes sense to me.
that's yeah.
And we actually did have a question about that, to be honest, and I'll just pop it up on the screen here as well. The question is, honoring the script makes sense, but if you've been with the character for a year or more, like in a series, do you ever have conversations with the writer or
I'm
director?
sorry, Gary.
Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to read this question? Sorry, we're breaking up again. I couldn't see. Honoring the script makes sense, but if you've been with the character for a year or more, like in a series, you ever have a conversation with the writer director saying, "I don't think I'd do that"? Well, first of all, I haven't been in a long series yet. I've been on some series, but I haven't been on a series for long enough to have that experience yet. But I think, sure, you could have agreements with the character, I mean, you can have discussions with your creatives, with your director, your showrunner, the writers. And I've been, I definitely can speak to that from being in a theatrical setting, like Henry Box Brown and many other plays or musicals I've done where you're doing a long run and you may go through changes in the script or going through changes right now and thinking about what my character may or may not do, or because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of this of a character, and then you give your feedback um, to the writer director. But it's kind of a thing. I think you got to be willing to take the risk and go there, and that a lot of times you can overthink things, and many times I think that an actor can be mistaken. You don't know what the character's going to do, and I think it's better to try to open yourself up to the possibility that they may do something different, and that's actually what makes it interesting, and that's really what theater is supposed to be. I mean, theater in the sense, the concept of theater, whether it's on the screen or whether it's on a stage, is about, it's not everyday moments of someone's life. These are seminal, these are particular, very important moments in this person's existence that are captured for an audience. And in those moments, they do things that they may not normally do. That's part of the whole reason for telling the story, is that it's they're taking some kind of a risk, or they're willing to fight harder for something that they've ever fought before, or they're faced with something that they've never had to deal with before. That makes us do different things. And so I think you as an actor, and again, I think the actors that we admire, storytellers, are the ones that are willing to take the risk and do something that maybe you think they wouldn't do, So I try to be open to that idea and to do that myself, and I
Right.
still think there's a way to honor that. There's a way to honor your character, be true to your character, but at the same time, the character may be experiencing something different, or something different may be happening to them. But that doesn't mean it can't be true, and it can't be truthful for that character,
Okay.
Anyway,
Oh, fair enough. And
that's my opinion.
he kind of had a follow-up question with your character on women, and the question is, how long did it take you to leave that character, or is that much of an issue for you? I guess it would be another question.
Well, it is an issue. I mean, sort of. I mean, that shoot was pretty down and dirty. We're independent film, and we shot only for about a month, and it wasn't like I was on set for months and months or something. And so, and the way Anton likes to work, and he has a great team, and it was handheld cameras, and it was really quick. We didn't do, we didn't do a lot of takes. We weren't dwelling on these scenes for hours and hours and hours. And as you get to flow through things, is mentally healthier for you, rather than be stuck in the same moment over and over and over again. There were some pretty challenging scenes to do in this, in women psychologically and whatnot, but because I didn't get stuck, I didn't really get that stuck mentally or emotionally in something. I mean, a few times maybe, but I'm the kind of, my point of view on that is, there are some actors that like to be in character 24/7 when they're on set or when they're shooting, and maybe that's appropriate, maybe that's right, or that works for some people. I feel it's a balance, in that if you've really done all the preparation, which is about 90% of your work, before you show up on set, there's so much assimilated in me already, in my body, in my mind, hopefully, that I'm ready to go, that when the set is over, when we're done shooting at the end of the day, it's still in me. And I don't need to think about it. I don't need to exacerbate it. I don't need to push it further by going home and obsessing about, or feeling like I need to stay in character. It's still in me, I just need to focus on, preparing for the next day, preparing the scenes for the next day, and then trying to let go of it. And I think it's actually healthy to try to let go of it as much as you can. Again, it's so in you, even if you try to let go of it. And I think it's healthy to shift your attention to do some other activities. Go for a walk, get some exercise, spend maybe time with the cast doing something totally unrelated, or just trying to have fun together, and that I think that's healthy. That's healthy for you. And if you've done your work, it's going to be there when you go to pick it up the next day, the next morning. It's going to be there for you. but that's partly about trusting your instrument and your craft and knowing that you've done the work that you need to do. And then it only, it shouldn't take you that much work to get back into to get where you need to get to prepare to shoot again, or to do whatever you need to do that day. So when this was over, this shoot, I guess it's funny, like at the end of the shoot is we did some of the physical stunt work, and that's definitely was like a release for me to do the physicality. I won't give it away, but there's some physical stuff that happens, and that was kind of and it was nice that it happened towards the end of the shoot, because that was like a big, almost like a catharsis, because it was not the physical activity acted as a release for, I guess, emotion, also an emotional release, and a mental release. And so that was actually, I never thought of that. It was a nice way to end, and kind of help purge things, And I guess in some ways when it was over, I was kind of glad it was over, and I was happy to let Bradley go.
Yeah.
So
And
it wasn't one of these characters like, oh, I'm so in love with that character and I'm gonna miss him. It wasn't one of those characters.
understandably, yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I agree with your approach with that, and I do think that is a lot healthier mentally to be able to let that go. And like you said, if you've done your prep and all that, I completely agree with your approach on that. It's something I've put a lot of
Yeah,
thought
I
into,
think
to
it's
be honest. So,
uh-huh.
yeah. So thank you for that answer. I think that's a
Yeah.
great answer.
Yeah. No problem.
We are actually past our 30 minutes, but there is a couple other notes I wanted to make if you're up for it.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
No problem.
I do want to float back to another question that came up earlier, but it actually kind of goes back to. Well, I'll just read the question. I missed the start of the show, so I'm not sure if you've covered the tribute to Fred Astaire. Was that through dance or music?
Oh God, how did that? Who is that? Is that somebody who must be familiar with my work or something? Or how do they
It's
know about my tribute to Fred Astaire?
well, it's
Or is
the
that? Oh,
same.
did you have that? Did you have it in my bio?
It might be in your
Oh,
bio.
okay.
Yeah, it's the same person
Oh, okay.
who asked the other question as well.
Well, it was both. It was both through dance and music. I mean, he's one of my idols and one of my mentors from afar, so to speak. I mean, one of the greatest entertainers of the 20th century. And he introduced some of the greatest songs of the 20th century, as we know what's called the Great American Songbook. Songs by Irving Berlin and George Gershwin and so many others. And it was it's one of the most important art periods of artistic achievement in American culture was in that time period of the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and so. But anyway, I'm enamored with that, with that time period and all the artists that worked in that time period, and Fred Astaire was, of course, one of a kind, and I just admire him on many levels, and not just for his artistry, but he was just like, he called himself, oh, I'm just an old so and so from Omaha, just a regular guy. It seemed like there was nothing really fancy or special about him, but when he started to move around the stage and started to dance, it was like takes your breath away. It's like magical. But that was years of hard work. It was a year. I mean, he had a tremendous work ethic. He without going on a whole dissertation about Fred Astaire, I just admire his tremendous work ethic, and his commitment to excellence, even though he was able to not take things too seriously too, and have a good time, and just show up, do his job, and go home. He seemed to find a nice balance in his life that I guess I'm still trying to find. But I just have I have some connection to that time period that I can't quite explain, and I used to be cast in a lot of musicals like that. I did a musical once, a tour about a show that was slated to come to Broadway, never made it, called about the life story of Al Jolson. and I did that, and I did shows like 42nd Street, and I ended up specializing at one point, and so that's something that's still part of you when you're a dance. It's like if you do that when you're young, it still never quite leaves you, and
I think we lost you again there, Michael. Um, oh, I think we lost him big time this time. We'll see if he pops back on in a second, just to wrap things up. Just in case he does pop on back, just remember, if you do have any last minute questions, just pop them on up here. And
hey, sorry about that. Here I am.
no worries. Not a problem.
I don't know where we got cut off. I'm just saying that when I did to answer the long-winded answer that we're finally getting to to the person's question is, when I did the tribute, I was also dancing, and that adds a whole other element. I was recreating his actual choreography, which is rarely done. You see tributes to him, but it's rare that you actually see the actual choreography done, and that's quite a feat to do that on a stage the way it should be done. And that's what I was, endeavored to do. And then in addition to singing the song, some of his, his most well-known music. Yeah. And
Okay.
sometimes I had a dance partner. Sometimes I was doing it solo thing. And yeah.
All right. No, that's great. I'm just curious, is there any place somebody can see any of that, or see that tribute?
I wish, this was in the time before we really had video, I mean, before we had, social media. This was this is a little while ago. It was a minute ago, and I'm, so there, if you happen to go to my Facebook page, there was a little clip I put on there a few months ago when I was doing something just for fun, that some people thought was reminiscent of my Fred Astaire work, and it's on my Facebook page. If you look on, under my videos on my Facebook page, it'll probably show up. Oh, and I think it's under on my Instagram. If you go to Instagram, Michael Simon Hall, and you look under my videos, the video section.
Right, the IGTV.
You might see a little clip there or something. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And the last thing, I'm going to wrap up the show here fairly quick, but the last thing I wanted to kind of share and get your thoughts on is what's going on here.
Yeah, that's me and Mark Ruffalo, obviously. Wonderful actor, human being. This was after we shot for I Know This Much Is True. And that was the summer of 2019, and then that came out last year in the middle of the pandemic, and it was great to have something out there while we were all sequestered, and a wonderful miniseries based on the novel by Wally Lamb, and adapted by Derek Cianfrance for the screen as a miniseries. And I play a lawyer who Mark's character comes to for advice. And he did an amazing job, and it was an honor to work with him and Derek, and just a great piece of storytelling. And he ended up winning the Emmy last year. This year he won the Emmy and the SAG Award and the Golden Globe for his performance, and deservedly so. He plays twin brothers. Have you seen it? Did you get to see?
I have not seen it, actually.
It's on HBO, and he plays twin brothers, and one has a severe. We're having all kinds of technical difficulties. My light just went out, but that's okay. So, he has a brother. Well, one brother has a severe mental problems, and the other brother is just this regular guy who's trying to do right by his brother and trying to help him while trying to keep his own life on track. And it's a real slice of life. It's a really gritty, real storytelling, almost too real. And for some people during the pandemic, it wasn't something that they really were up for seeing. And it's not the kind of show you can binge, really. Let's put it that way. You want you want to space out those episodes. I think, and but it's really meaningful about family, about trying to be a good friend, and and just trying to survive in a world where things are really where things are challenging. And Mark did an amazing job, and Wally Lamb wrote, and it's based on an amazing novel. So I was honored to be part of that. But anyway, after when we were, we have this funny thing that what would happen is Derek liked to do this thing like John Cassavetes used to on set. Like he used to take these pictures and everyone used to laugh. And he said, let's do a John Cassavetes shot. So that's what was going on all the time. Like, so, take some selfies, everybody laugh, and that's what we were doing in that shot, so it was a good time.
Right? No, it looks like a good time, and I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
throw that on my watch list, so I can check it out. So I want to thank you very much. We have gone about 45 minutes, so I'm happy that you stuck around and continued on beyond our 30 minutes. So thank you for
No
that.
problem. No problem.
And thank you everybody for watching and the questions and everything else. As always, that's always appreciated. So thank you very much for that. And we will not be on air next week, but we will be on the following week after that. So be sure to tune in. Thank you again, Michael, and we'll talk soon, everybody.
Thanks, Gare.